Stathopoulos and Josh Phegan come together in an incredible podcast, Grow, Scale, Master.
An energetic approach to drive progress, master skills, build strengths and put the strategy back into rapid business and personal success.
Backed by real-world experience in rapid scaling to playing the long-term game of business, it's the story of all the lessons learned on the journey to mastery.
Be inspired, renew your energy and chase the future with Grow, Scale, Master.
You know, Con, one of the really early conversations that I had was about, is this a system or a person? And I think this really was an important conversation around, like growing a great business was to say, okay, right, what do you add first? Do you add the people and then you build the systems? Or do you build the systems and you add the people? And I'll never forget my dad said to me one day, he goes, Josh, we've got some phenomenal systems. If we just had a customer, it'd be awesome. Tell us a little about your thoughts about, system mindset, particularly as you're scaling and growing a big business.
Well, we were people first, right? So we didn't have any sales or really not that many sales. So we had a very basic operating platform or a set of systems that we kind of worked towards, but that had to evolve very, very quickly. We went from 90 sales to 300 sales to 700 sales to 1,000 and now we're at that 1,800 to 2,000 mark. So for us, it's all about sustainable scaling up for your systems. So sometimes it serves you right for that month or that quarter and then it doesn't serve you right moving forward. So for us, it's a constant review of how do we actually make the boats go faster? Really good book, Atomic Habits. We've spoken about it before, and they spoke about the English cycling team in that first chapter, right? When it was all about the 1%ers and the details that made the bikes go faster. Kind of the same principle in business. What's going to actually enable that team or that person to be able to move to that next level?
This is interesting. When something goes wrong, like what do you think?
I think people, platform, or technology.
I'll just go people or system.
It's kind of the same thing, right?
And so is it that the person didn't follow the system or we just haven't built it yet?
Yes.
And this is kind of interesting because when you're talking about that sustainable scaling, like there must have been a point in your business where you go, like an all-hands sales meeting doesn't work now.
Correct.
Or going through every listing in the business doesn't work now.
Correct.
And so that was really good when we were like 3 people sharing a pizza, but now that we're like, 50 people, geez, that's not happening.
How good was COVID, right, that enabled us or forced us to make changes because you had to rapidly go to a new system, right? You had to kind of tool something as you were going. So for us, it was all about connectivity. Couldn't do face-to-face one-on-ones, couldn't do face-to-face, open for inspections, advertised open. So we had to retool very quickly. So we've taken a lot of those learnings and we've implemented our team meetings on Monday morning, 8:30 to 9 o'clock. They're on Zoom and every single person can log in where they are. So for us, being able to hold it as a town hall or as a village meeting, we couldn't do that anymore because of the size and scale.
As you started to grow more geographical locations, you had to have a leader in each business though, right, that was there for deal support and being able to assist. And now you're learning through more of the sales management piece of how do I actually help and assist to put people on, whether or not it be auctioneers or people that are coming in at a systems level to actually help people to grow in these businesses, right?
Absolutely. I mean, look, one of the things that we're looking at right now is a solutions trainer. We've got so much technology and our platform has rapidly expanded that we actually need someone that's there being able to unlock the power or the brilliance of what we've created, plus using the technology that we've got so we can actually not just access that 10%, we can, get to that 40 or 50 or 100% in terms of adoption to be able to, again, unlock that next level of growth.
So from 90 to 1,800 transactions per annum, what systems broke?
Everything, Josh.
Just asking for a friend.
People broke.
Yeah.
Technology broke.
When you say people broke, like literally their mindset of what they were used to at 90, they couldn't comprehend 150 or 200?
Yeah, it was a bit of that. So workload increased significantly. And then because we hadn't created systems, then we were just basically doing the same thing, but we're just throwing more bodies or more people or more hours at it. So that's when errors start to happen. That's when people start to get fatigued. And that's when we stop dropping the detail, and the detail matters, particularly when you're processing a listing or an exchange or something that's going to impact an agent's world. So people was first. Second thing was we weren't unlocking the power of the technology that we had. And we actually hadn't thought about, wow, what do we do when we get to 200 sales or 300 sales or 500 sales? So for us, it was We made lots of mistakes and we were forced to be able to change. And now that we've learnt that through, obviously, our growth and through COVID, now I'd like to think we're on the front foot of going, well, what does 5,000 sales per annum look like? How do we effectively get through there without processing people internally or externally? How do we use the technology? How would we use the resources and the platform that we've created to be able to, streamline that through?
Yeah, this is an interesting part about like really understanding, okay, you're going to have a system, and when it breaks, we've got to go back. And this is where a lot of people have kind of relied on the technology providers to do the heavy lifting, as opposed to saying, okay, well, how do we actually make sure that we think about this manually first before we go to digital? And I see a lot of people jump to digital straight up, but they don't really think about the process.
Yes.
And like a great example of that, how do you sign an agency agreement around here? And so some people are still on a physical form. Some people are going to use DocuSign. Some people have got some sort of other proprietary system inside of their tech stack. And in some organizations, they use all three. And I'm like, well, that's three opportunities for things to go wrong. So you got to kind of make that decision. Are we going all in on this particular thing? And if we are, what are the barriers to entry to go to make those sorts of conversations happen? And okay, great. How often do we have to go through reimagining this workflow about what's actually happening and how we got to make that better? What I learned is a lot of the workflow systems were designed around compliance and were designed around those moments of signing agency agreements and contracts of sale, but they completely left behind all the prospecting opportunities that were created around a sales file.
Yeah.
And it literally, that bit is completely unsystemized. How important is it to get that sort of stuff right, like particularly as you're scaling and growing, to not miss the opportunities on the way through on a transaction basis?
We did an exercise, Josh. So we went to a tech provider for a proof of concept on some propensity scoring, but just basically looking at the depth of our database, right? What was really interesting was we had, at the time, 225 or 229,000 records in our database. So they're not relationships, they're just people's names. Sometimes they had a full record or whatever. There were 843 sales that occurred in that database that we either had no contact or limited contact. There are also 340 managements that went through to other offices. So the opportunity cost of not having a systems mindset for us was $17 million in GCI and a portfolio of about $1.3 million. That's in 1 year. So imagine if you actually systemize the way that you manage data, the way that you worked your workflow, the way that you operated technology. Imagine if you just systemize an ideal week or an ideal day.
Sure.
As basic as that, right? Get a piece of pen and paper, write out what I should do on a Monday. AM is for prospecting, PM is for face-to-face. Here are the people that want to hear from me on a Monday.
And what happens if I put it at the top of my calendar? So I can just quickly reference it every day.
Even better, because now you're using Outlook, right? You're using technology. And what about if I actually, instead of taking those moments out of my diary and put them into my calendar, I could reference, a street or an old MA or Josh, I met that guy, what was his name, 3 years ago, bang, and I could just look at it. So
does it amaze you though that like agents don't think that way? That's like, well, hang on a second, like this continues to be a recurring problem. And you will walk into teams that are growing and you'll go, oh, like there's a bit of crossover. There's no clarity about areas of responsibility. Well, hang on a second. So I walk into a team and go, who are you and what do you do here? And effectively what I'm asking for is that how do you think about the titling of your role, but what's actually your area of responsibility? So my area of responsibility is that set the vision for the team, prospect, list, and sell. My area of responsibility is operations, marketing, compliance, managing the team, all of those things. My area of responsibility is to prospect, list, and sell in this team.
It doesn't surprise me because it's the exact same thing what we were speaking about in a couple of episodes ago about managing your past clients, right? We would rather invest time and energy into finding a new client than actually working that data. It's the same thing. We haven't taken the time to actually sit there and clearly define roles, responsibilities, and actually document what success looks like, and then have a daily whip every single morning to work out what didn't we do the day before, what needs to be done today, and then make sure we just dot our I's and cross our T's. It's that basic, but we don't do it.
So a great restaurant, before you go for service, what they'll actually do is that the chef and maybe if it's a fancy one, the maitre d' and the head barman and the sommelier, they actually have a conversation and say, today, guys, we've got the steak frites and we've got the espresso martini and we've got the tiramisu, and Con and Emily coming in, and Con's going to propose tonight, and then off the back of that, we've got the top 10 of plates they're coming in. And so they do this thing, right? And it's foundational because they're briefing. So I'd say, okay, great. At the start of every day, we need a brief.
Yeah.
And like, oh, do I have to be there for that? Yes, you have to be there for that. It's like that whole idea is that, okay, great. If that's 9 o'clock because you drop kids off at school, then that's when it happens.
Sure.
But it is an important part to go and get that right, because what you've got to realize is that how do we actually go to build it? So normally I start with paper first. I write it out. I think about, okay, great. Where are the inputs? How does that happen? I design it, and then I'll add the tech later. And this is that whole idea that I then say, okay, great. I'm going to give you 3 words: teach, train, test. Now, if you think about one of the most important skills that we all learn in life, it's all about how to drive a car. So you get to an age, you've got to go sit a theory test. You then get the opportunity to be able to drive, probably with mum and dad for a while. Once you've done a certain number of hours, then you've got to go in for professional instruction. And then once you've done that, you then have to go and sit with an independent assessor.
Yeah.
So it's okay, great. So if I'm going to think about a micro skill or a really specific skill set, so for Josh to come and join Con's team, he needs to be able to do an open home. He needs to be able to do a callback. He needs to be able to take an offer from a buyer, and he needs to know how to get a buyer to bid up 10 grand more at an auction. Okay, great. So what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you those micro skills. When I teach you how to do an open, then I want you to train me how to do it, because training is mastery.
Yes.
And then I'm going to send you to someone else in our business, and they're going to test your knowledge on this area to deem you competent.
Yeah.
How's that for a method for rapid scaling of skill set?
Love it. Absolutely love it. And I think that's what we don't do enough of, is we're not testing for competency. We're actually, how many people, I mean, look, we met 857 buyers this weekend just gone by, right? How many of those are going to get a perfect callback on Monday? Well, we don't know, because we actually haven't done the competency to actually make sure that Josh now is qualified to actually speak to a buyer.
Sure. And this is you hear a lot of people, I don't want to do my listing presentation in front of you. Audits is different, it's artificial. Age-old story, if you can't explain it, you can't do it.
Yeah.
And so you've got to be able to present. And this is interesting, where teachable systems, where you say, okay, great, what are the essentials to be a great property manager? Arrears, routines, ingoings, outgoings, having a conversation with someone about a rent increase, talking to a landlord, meeting your landlord face-to-face. In sales, what does it look like? Okay, you're going to need to be really good at, generating a lead and going out to someone's house and being in the moment and giving them the confidence to do the transaction today. So whatever it is that you're doing, that you lead how to actually say, okay, great, this is the teachable system. Now, you're now learning through this as you continue the scale about, how do I now make it a teachable system for sales management and property management growth and growing our people and thinking about all of those different things, because it's different, right? From a team of 5 or 6
Absolutely.
to being a team of 100 and what that does in terms of how you think about it. Building out that tool set so anyone can access it is a really important thing, from job scorecards to the conversations around what we do as an organization. Could we spend more time in actually saying, okay, great, what are the tools in this business? And can we have fewer tools that are better?
Absolutely. I mean, have we started off with an robust onboarding system?
Sure.
So how do we actually onboard an agent or a property manager or a field services officer or a leasing agent, whatever it might be? So the first thing is, and we've had to do this because we've gone from 5 people in our business to 147 people.
Sure.
And so onboarding was a massive gap in our business.
Sure.
So we didn't have that system mindset back then, because it was just literally throwing people at the problem and being able to go, hey, we just need the bodies coming in.
When does your system break? Like how many people in terms of onboarding? Like, do you reckon you could onboard 5 people a month now?
So we've got 3 onboarding sessions per month, and we onboard 8 to 12 people every month.
Do you reckon you could onboard 100 people a month?
Probably not.
So it's interesting. At what point does that break?
Probably 40. We could probably do it. And
okay.
at 100, we probably need to go back and retool it.
So that's about what I'm trying to get everyone to understand, is that there's scalable points. At this point, we nail it. At that next point, we nail it. But in between, we almost die, because we have to reimagine what's actually possible.
Yeah, I agree.
Experiences that rapidly shaped you.
So, Con, I walked into my dad's business as a salesperson, and we were just completing the ISO 9001 systemization.
Wow.
And what's that? Well, on the back of helmets, you might remember, they had the 5 ticks for quality.
Yes.
And we were the first ever quality endorsed real estate agency in Australia.
Wow.
And we thought
expensive exercise as well, right?
We thought that if we put the 5 ticks on the side of all of our signboards, people would instantly list with us. No. It didn't happen. Yeah. But the basic idea is that what it did do, though, is it was about systemization of thinking. So inside of our business, every 6 weeks, we would have a random auditor come into the business to randomly audit that each of the systems that we had in play was actually being used and was being used by everyone.
And it forced you to document every single step of the process, right?
Which was how we handle a buyer inquiry, how we handle a seller inquiry, how we handle a landlord inquiry. And when we got into those systemization of those things, it was amazing, because it was forms and checklists of visuals and dialogues. And that was where the teddy bear story came from, about saying, okay, great, so above, normal, and then the bottom line of service. And so you would say, okay, great. So you go to a coffee shop, hey, lovely to see you. You order your coffee, great, it's a normal experience. Next time they bring it out, there's a little tiny teddy on the top of the coffee, and then all of a sudden now that's above experience. And what actually happens over a period of time is that what above becomes norm. And then one day you're like, hey, Josh, you got to come to this coffee shop, you get this tiny teddy on the top of the teaspoon and whatever. And then all of a sudden, guess what? There's no tiny teddy there anymore, and now it's below. And so this was about being really clear that if you're going to provide above expected levels of service experience, you need to make sure that you actually are protecting margin, right? And off the back of that you actually can scale it.
Yeah.
So what you do with one listing is probably not what you're going to do if you're going to run 24 listings every month.
Yes.
And so it's about like really understanding where that actually breaks. But what I loved about the process and what we were drilled about was about get really, really clear about what that experience curve is and actually build a set of systems, methodologies and approaches that absolutely guaranteed a minimization in variance of the quality of the service so the customer would keep on coming back.
Yeah, I love that.
And I love that where how come it is that you go to some restaurants and from day one they nail it, and there are other restaurants that you go day one and it's empty.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's a very clear opening process and what they do, and they invite the 200 friends around and all of the above. And it's about that service experience, and that's an important part.
Yeah, well, I don't really have an experience that's rapidly shaping me, but I have a figure in my life that rapidly changed all my experiences, which is my father. Speaking of dads.
Yeah.
So when you walk into my house, and you've been over to my house, you'll see a big photo of, a guy in the 60s, in a convertible with his Ray-Bans on, reversing his convertible Eldorado out. And I think for me, that's a reminder every day that I get back into my home, I get to actually just stop, pause, reflect, and respect, that everything that's been created for me by my parents has been such a gift. And it's one of those reminders that you can always strive to be better. My dad came to Australia in 1952. He was 17. He came with 34 of his friends from the same town in Greece. By 1962, he had 4 houses and a car. And I think for me, he worked really hard and he made sure that he could provide for, and take advantage of this opportunity. And I think the biggest thing that I see in what we do professionally is that we are so rich in opportunity, yet we never seize those moments. So for me, it's just stop, smell the roses, enjoy, reflect, have some gratitude, and make sure that you can just enjoy the journey.
If you look at the detail of that photo, is there anything interesting that's in that car?
Yeah, there is. There's 2 things.
What is it?
First of all, I didn't know this, so we got a professional to actually go and increase the dots per inch, so the image was clearer. But Dad had a driving glove on, which I thought was pretty cool. 1962.
Yeah.
And there's a telephone on the dashboard.
Wow.
1962. He was prospecting.
Wow. How did he get that?
I don't know. Maybe he thought he was Get Smart or something like that, but he had a phone.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Something that's changing your view.
We automated compliance and we forgot about lead generation. It's kind of interesting when you go to have a look at a lot of the systems that, businesses were kind of forced to put in during the COVID era that have now become standardized practice. But, geez, they missed a lot on the opportunity. And like, why can't we get to a point where CRMs go, bang, new listings come in, this is a 4-better, go and find me the 4-better appraisals, go find me the 3-bedroom appraisals that should get up, bang, here's the call list.
It's coming, for sure. It has to, right?
Well, we've heard about it for a long time, though. We walked in and my dad, used to have these carpet petitions in the office, right? And there was this big map. And I remember as a 6-year-old, Dad was like, oh, just look after yourself, mate. I've got to do some stuff for half an hour. And I walked up to the map and I just took out all the things, right? No. And they were all different colours. And I didn't realise why they were different colours. And that was where the landlords lived and that's where the properties were that we managed. And these were the ones that were currently on the market. And these were the past ones that we'd sold in the past. And it was this great data visualisation. And what you realize is that, tech providers are screaming out for ideas and innovation that will actually make a difference because they're trying to add additional features that would make someone want to sign up, as opposed to what are things that actually foundationally are the really key, like cornerstone ideas that rapidly reshape an entire way of thinking the way the business works.
Yeah.
So if I could build a system that go, bang, press the button, there's the list. And the clarity.
Everyone that we've ever sold to, everyone that we've ever appraised, anyone that's got an investment property.
Where our landlords live. Where our landlords live.
Any piece of data set that is a 422 within 500 metres of this property.
Sure.
There's your list. And you should be able to come in on Monday or Tuesday and just call that list.
So here's the print button for the list. Here's the print button for the direct mail. Here's the print button for the email.
E-newsletter, here's the social. List. Amazing, right?
But, the interesting conversation is, but now we've got to add in all the cold data. Man, can we just work with the, high value relationships?
Yeah.
Recency, frequency, monetization. So people have got a high RFM analysis. And so, they do this in retail. They go, hey, Josh recently came into the ASOP store. He frequently comes in every month to go and buy XYZ. And literally he's a high client spender, so serve him well.
Yes.
Yeah, so when you start thinking about it, how come we're not that smart? And is it because we're too cottage in industry, or we're trying to build all these other feature sets on, this is how I can do this, but hey, just do this, man, with past clients and people that are already spending money?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. It's interesting. I went into ASOP yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, and
did you buy something on my profile?
No, I didn't. I've got my own profile, but
there you go.
It was so interesting. So I spent a fair amount of money there, and they threw in a body scrub at no charge.
There you go.
And I said, why the body scrub? And they said, we just noted the last time you bought it was 7 months ago.
Yeah.
You must be up for a new one.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. I think that going back to your question is we're undisciplined.
Yeah.
And we have access to too much information. And so what we do is we either have core reluctance or fatigue. And we just don't utilise our resources as well as what we possibly could.
And I think the other side of it too, on the technology provider side, is that they're looking for rapid monetization.
Well, they're all owned by PE and whatnot, and they want to be able to, kind of monetize that as quickly as they can. But I think we're going to get there sooner than what we think.